Greetings, everyone, everywhere, all across the Sports Shuffle Nation. And yours truly off of the Sports Shuffle Pup list with the cold last week, ready to rock and roll, along with
Flying Ryan Gokers here with you today.
And here's hoping you're having a better day than the Nationals as they are down mid-7th, 6-0. Saw a tweet that they are so far 3 for 24 for the entire series.
You don't win games that way. That's a quick way to get eliminated quickly.
Because I believe you had mentioned that you're going, Cardinals might be going back.
Might have a chance to go back. I mean, we got to see who else comes out of the NLDS between the Reds.
Yes, it's Giants and Reds, of course. That's 4 o'clock. It's a 4-game playoff day. Orioles against the Yankees 7:30, and Tigers and Athletics. Athletics hanging in there at 9:30 p.m. Sadly, Rays are not on the schedule.
Nope, not on the docket, and we're never on the menu. But the 2-time AL champion Rangers were knocked out by the Orioles in the wild card game. So already a new look to the postseason, just with the only team really you would say, man, they are always there in recent years even, is the Yankees from the AL.
Though, with the Yankees, you have to wonder about the A-Fraud and the Kane 2 nights in a row. Have to do my John Sterling impression, don't you know?
A-Rod is not looking very, very good right now. This Yankees team, they didn't beat Baltimore in the division by very much. They arguably are not a better team.
Their lead faded towards the end. They just didn't. They did great off the bat, but then
they kind of plummeted there in the end. So it'll be interesting to see, regardless of how A-Rod plays, whether or not they can take down the Orioles. And we got a very good opportunity. Given Oakland is on the ropes tonight, they have to win to keep it going to 5. But Baltimore could win tonight, and we could see a Baltimore-Oakland ALCS. And who would have picked that preseason? Let alone, an ALCS, but an ALDS. Your both team getting in the playoffs. So
my Beltway World Series of the whole Nats and Orioles might not come to fruition here.
It might not, but we have an opportunity to see teams like the Nationals and the Reds and the Orioles, the Athletics in the championship series, and a little different. So it's good to see the new teams come up. A few years back we saw the Rays come out of nowhere, pretty much make the World Series, of course losing in 5. But it's always good to see at least one team come out of nowhere, make a deep run, and be a good team.
Getting in the Wayback Machine the last week, how about Josh Hamilton's fly ball oopsie, that it was routine fly ball and just absolutely whiffed in the outfield?
It's kind of a microcosm of the way the Rangers season came down, is because they had a 5-game lead with a week to go and lost the division. Not the wild card. They lost the division.
You only need to be in first place, even if it's one day, if it's the last day of the season, which the Oakland A's were, that's the day that counts.
Yes, and that's the thing. When you're missing routine fly balls and you're not doing the little things right, you're not going to be going very far. And the Rangers had 2 very long years. We got to look at it. Baseball's already a 6. They still
need. Rangers still need 2 more trips to the World Series and 2 more losses to be the Buffalo Bills of baseball, 0 for 4.
Yes. However, they're not going to do it in 4 straight years, which unprecedented by the Bills in any sport, it seems like nowadays. But the Rangers, they're always going to be around until this team gets a little older. They decide to blow it up for whatever reason they do. Of course, there's been a lot of talk about Josh Hamilton.
Is he still a Ranger next year?
I don't see how they can just let him go. However, we've seen it before. Big name guys looking for a better salary.
The Red Sox trade that came out of nowhere to the Dodgers this year.
You look at a team like the Red Sox or the Yankees or the Dodgers willing to throw a lot of money. Maybe the Rangers don't compete. We saw them last year lose C.J. Wilson. The
Angels, how did that work out with Albert Pujols, C.J. Wilson, all that money? Angels ain't in the postseason. They gone.
They weren't even there, but
they got beat by the Rays rather resoundingly this year.
Yeah, it was
Two
not a good
sweeps
year
in a row, if I remember correctly. Won a 4-game sweep room.
Yeah, it wasn't a good season for the Angels after the bidding war, but we saw last year how certain teams were able to buy
Marlins
players.
spent a lot of money. How did that help them?
Not very well.
191. Wham.
Yeah, and you look at a team like the Rays, whose payroll is somewhere around 24th, and they were in it until, 3 games left in the season, when the Marlins were out, mid-August, essentially. You look at stuff like that, the Red Sox were out of it about the same time.
How about Bobby Valentine? Is that not the best benefits package in the entire known existence for any business ever? You think about it. He led his team to last place in the division, generally ridiculed probably by most of the players that he managed on a daily basis. Last place, gets fired the last day basically
You're
after
fired.
season. You're fired, a la Donald Trump in The Apprentice in the boardroom. He still gets paid $2.5 million.
$2.5 million, can take a job elsewhere and get paid more money.
Who hires him? Does anybody hire him?
ESPN will hire him. He was there before. I don't think he's going to go right to another team.
Yeah, that's true. If Matt Millen can get a job as an analyst.
But you look at Terry Francona, who basically ended the longest streak, or one of the longest streaks of World Series droughts in history with Boston winning 2, got fired. He took a year off. He came back, of course, for the Indians. Beginning or the end of last
Tracy
week.
just resigned from the Rockies, so he's gone.
Tracy. Now he's a good manager. The Rockies, not such a good team. So there are some openings available for. I would be surprised to see if Jim Tracy maybe goes to the Red Sox. Actually, he's a good manager. He's proven he can.
Stuff has happened.
He's proven he can take a small market team like Colorado to the World Series. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Also. But yeah.
What about that whole? There was a whole bunch of rumors that the Red Sox allegedly were going after Blue Jays manager John Farrell a while back.
Well, if you're in last place, you might as well go after the team in fourth place as manager, because that's at least a step up. I'm kind of surprised no one's going after Joe Madden. After with the payroll the Rays have, the fact that 2 of the last 4 years they've made the playoffs, they've been close the other 2 years. And that's not a team that's going to go into a bidding war. If they say, hey, we'll give you another $10 million, it would have to be on Joe Madden to say, I'd want to stay here. It's not going to be the Rays going, oh, we'll match the offer. We know that.
That's not happening.
No. If you want to get paid, you don't play for Tampa Bay. Yeah. And as much as we both love the Rays...
But how did that work out, for example? Because B.J. Upton's name is being brought up as one, the Nats or the Nationals are one of the heavy rumored destination places for BJ to wind up. And on the other hand, I've talked to people that somebody thinks that, somebody I asked ended up saying, well, how much of a percent chance does BJ stay with the Rays? One person was like, 2%. Somebody else is like, I say 30 or 40.
I don't know yet. I mean, we'll have to see. Right now, there's not a whole lot of baseball rumoring for off-season moves going on yet because we're still... a week into the playoffs. I could see BJ moving, but he's been the subject of trade rumors for a few years now.
5 centuries?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, the only other person I've really heard of being named in trade rumors who's never actually been moved this much is Patrick Marleau. Every 3 weeks, it's, we got to get rid of Marleau. He's not doing this, he's not doing that. Let's get rid of him. BJ Upton is in that category, and given I follow my teams a lot more.
He shows up when it's September.
Yeah, he shows up. Longoria is apparently 162 hero no matter what, in it or not.
Did you see that also Dan Johnson was playing in Anything You Can Do, I Can Do Better and getting the exact same number of runs in Chicago and actually allegedly texting Evan Longoria that?
I could see that. But it is an interesting dynamic, the postseason and the offseason kind of combining at one time. But of course, if your team's out, you're going to hear more about the rumors than anything else, but...
And the one thing that BJ does have to keep track of is Carl Crawford. Carl Crawford went after the money in Boston. Now he's in Los Angeles. And I don't know about you. I think I'd call that not exactly... If money was the goal, he got paid. But how happy did you think he was in Boston, ultimately? And would he have rather been in Tampa Bay? If you can get in the mind of Carl Crawford.
I would think that if his only goal is money, he's happier wherever he's at now. However, if he was a Ray from the day they started, the day those doors opened at the Trop, he was a Ray. And I think that the fans are hurt that he left. So if he came back, I think the fans would be a little cold at first, but I think he'd be happier as a player in Tampa Bay than he is in Dodger Blue or Fenway Red. But all in all, if he's going for the money, which, let's be honest, is what he did, he might be happier in LA or Boston than he was in Tampa.
True. And so, buy or sell, B.J. Upton is a Ray next year.
I'm going to buy it. I don't think there's much of a market for B.J. because he's got the issues with how he plays, where he's not necessarily a hustle guy, not necessarily the rah-rah team guy. So we'll have to see.
Because we all remember that one time Longoria called him out, and it was visible, and everybody saw it.
Yeah, it wasn't one player being in a bad mood saying something. It was one of your team leaders noticing everything that every single person. I think it was an ESPN game too, so it wasn't like it was just a local broadcast. It was a national broadcast in Tampa.
Everybody was definitely.
Everybody noticed.
Was all a Twitter about.
Yeah, and everybody had an uproar about it. So I don't know how the market will be. I think it'll be back just because I think there is a little bit of a following for B.J. Upton in Tampa that there might not be in other places.
So that he may end up just being, as opposed to one of the faces of the franchise, somewhere else, he's a bit part.
Yeah, somewhere else, like here, he is one of the faces, if not the biggest face, besides Longoria and Price. Somewhere else, I mean...
One more quick, because I know we're having something else to segue on to. Buy or sell, Cy Young for Price.
I think the Cy Young will go to Verlander just because his team's in the playoffs and Price is right now sitting at home. They had very similar stat lines. I think the stats would favor David Price. However, the Cy Young and the MVP tend to also take into account the way your team plays. How does the team
perform?
Which, going a little off book, is why I think Cabrera, winning the Triple Crown, will win over Trout in Anaheim. His team's still playing.
Well, the whole DUI just got pushed under the rug, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, we won't. No, move along. These aren't the droids you're looking for.
Yes. So I do think that Verlander will get it, but I think Price is deserving to probably finish second.
Which is not bad considering how much disrespect Tampa gets in the major media.
Yeah, it's not exactly a media hotbed for baseball.
Well, talking about media hotbed and stuff, as we all know, there were two major incidents over the last week that galvanized everybody's attention. Now, my major incident definitely happened with was that an infield fly? But it was the outfield. And not necessarily the call, but what happened as a result. And, you know, if you were in there, if you paid your money, if you paid your ticket, you were rooting as an Atlanta Braves fan. You wanted, with the decade of fail, and if not more, that has been the Atlanta Braves' legacy or lack thereof, they want to move on. And now, granted, you could say that the three errors were what cost the Braves the game, but most fans will blame the officiating. And in this case, that now we tend to be opposite on this. I tend to believe that it was the right call, but it was just called way too late. Your view on it is?
I think it was kind of the wrong call. It fell in the outfield. I mean, it fell between the outfielder and the shortstop, I believe. It was the shortstop. Might have been the third baseman going out. But it just seemed like... I mean, you look at the replay, you can't even see the infield dirt in half the shots. How is that the infield fly rule? I don't know. Maybe I'm not well versed in the rule of exactly what the infield fly rule is. I know if it's runners on first and second, that you can't just let the ball drop and try and get the double play. Because, you know, you got to tag up from first or second, so you can drop it, go to third, go to second, double play. Helps you out. But when it goes into the outfield, I don't know how that rule plays. Now, as far as the fans are concerned, I've been there when fans started throwing stuff on the field. Hell, I've started it. at a USF Cincinnati game about
Personal
5 years
confessions
ago.
here on the Sports Shuffle, folks.
I don't have the voice modifier, but I've been there, I've seen it, I've been a part of it.
Yes, I'm
started.
talking with person X over here.
Yes.
That's usually what they do. Screen goes blank.
Yeah. So that being said, I understand how the Braves fans feel when they feel they got hosed, and the reason that the game I was at, they started
A la
throwing
Major League, we got hosed on that call.
Yeah, and the reason that we were starting to throw at the game I was at a few years back was because they missed a blatant pass interference in the end zone of the student section that decided the outcome of the game on the last play. Instead of, given the game would have had one more play, USF is on the one. It's a 5-point game.
Not necessarily
they can't
a
kick the field
given.
goal. Not a given. However, it's an easy catch that was interrupted by pass interference, not called. At least you have an opportunity from the 1 yard line. One play. If they don't get it, okay, they didn't get it. Pass interference had to be called. So everybody went ballistic. With the Braves, kind of the same thing, except they called something that I don't know if it should have been called. Now, the other fan behavior one, and this one is a little more cold-hearted than
because you have one. It's called officials. Was it a blown call? Was it not a blown call? Was it the right thing to call?
And it's kind of...
Then we also have Rule 419 to bring up later on.
Yes. Now, it's kind of... With this one, it's more of the... I'm trying to think of the best word to say this. It's kind of the wholehearted blindness you get from sports. That when Matt Castle got knocked out of the game against Baltimore with a concussion...
One of the dichotomies of being a sports fan.
Yes. Some fans, not the whole stadium, not the majority of fans, a small segment of fans were cheering after he got knocked out. Now, I've seen people go, and we had the lineman from the Chiefs, whose name's escaping me right now, go off on a big tangent that we all saw several times about how shameful and disgusting it was. Which it was, because, I've played sports, I've been hurt. You don't pay attention, first of all, what's going on around you. So I don't think Matt Castle even heard the cheers or the boos or anything. Because you're not paying attention.
When you get the Shinola knocked out of you, I've never played sports myself. I can imagine all of a sudden just everything goes topsy-turvy and you're trying to remember your name.
Yeah, see, I had my knee go backwards. It's not even a head thing. My first instinct was, get off the field. It wasn't, what's everybody saying? What's it sound like? It was,
self-preservation.
Get off the field. Get up. And and I was the captain of this team, so I had a little more on it than, ow, I'm hurt. It was, I do not want to be a captain laying on the field hurt. And Matt Castle, like most quarterbacks,
you can't go to your captain and go, captain, I need to get off you. We're the captain.
Yeah, exactly. I got up.
You had to tell yourself.
On a bad knee, tried to run off the field the best I could. Probably looked like a wounded duck. But that being said, got off the field, adrenaline started kicking back in, went back in, and then did not sleep the rest of the night because I couldn't move my knee whatsoever. But that being said, I couldn't tell you what... The only thing I remember hearing was when I tried to stand up, the refs told me, stay down. Because he saw exactly what happened, so he knew, from his point of view,
what
happened.
Enough situational awareness to realize what was going on.
And he said, you need to stay down. I said, I gotta get off the field. And he didn't do anything more than just say, you need to stay down. But that's the only thing I heard before I got to the sideline and my coaches started talking to me. It was not something you were aware of. So I don't think Matt Castle heard it. But the players who are sitting there, and we've seen it when there's injuries, they get on one knee, some groups gather together and pray. And sometimes you see it, both teams do it. I mean, we saw it with Amendola, I believe, and we've got to talk about that here in a little bit. Just how almost serious that one was. But I think that was the more disgusting display just because it was malicious. The Braves were passionate, and they thought they got screwed. Which, I think there's an argument both ways.
With the whole Braves fans, I think the part that was disgusting would be the length that the display went on. In your case, it was the total heart and in your case, in your debate, it was the total heartlessness of the fans. It was the degree of emotion and the lack of concern for a human being who's on the field, regardless of what you think as a personal fan. With the Braves, I would say it was the length, because I lost track of the number of times that the radio play-by-play were like, come on, folks, don't throw any more beer bottles on. We got to get this game back, and we need to get this game back going. We need to get things back to normal. It wasn't regardless of what you say, call. Then there's another beer bottle tossed on, and then there's another, and then there's another, and then at some point, just be glad that they can't penalize the home team a run because of fan. Because I know in football, I know that you can be penalized a certain number of yards based on how the fans react. So I would say that the reaction, not necessarily the reaction in of itself of the Atlanta Braves fan, what was bad, but it was the duration of the reaction.
And there is one other thing, and this is something that is an infamous moment in baseball.
By the way,
history.
It's 8-0 Cardinals. I think this one is just about over.
Yeah, it looks like the Cardinals will be up 2-1. Now, this is one of the most infinite baseball moments in history that has nothing to do with the actual game. Disco Demolition Night with the White Sox. They had a doubleheader, and between the two, they destroyed a bunch of disco discs on the field. They actually made so much debris on the field, the White Sox had to forfeit the second game of the doubleheader. Now, if the Braves fan would have went completely out of hand and wrecked the field,
so that would
through
have been
broken glass bottles, they could have actually forfeited their playoff game had it gotten out of hand even more so. So I think as long as the Braves fans took, as long and as sad,
so the
and
the duration was unacceptable, but it wasn't to the point where it cost their team the game.
Now, because you were saying it couldn't penalize them with a run, but if they throw enough bottles, and I don't know if they throw them high enough,
the umpires could declare unsafe playing conditions, or that they feel like their lives are being threatened.
Exactly. I mean, if you throw a broken bottle or a bottle and it breaks on the field, shatters, and then someone makes a diving catch and gashes their arm open, home or away team, that is not going to be acceptable on any stretch. So,
or if you're throwing it, and whether on purpose or not, you hit somebody in the head.
Yes, and that was
which any other place would be assault and battery.
Yeah, exactly. So the Braves fans, I think they pushed the line, probably went over it a little bit, but not to the extent the Chiefs fans, because it's not. And I've been to an NFL game, I've been to college games. When someone gets hurt on the other team, and it's a player that. Don't get me wrong, my background for a full year was Brady when he hurt his knee. I'm a Dolphins fan. I hope he got well. But, as a Dolphins fan, I'm going, this is good for me. And I've been at football games when the away guy will get hurt, and there will be some fans that cheer. It's the other team. But to do it to your own team on top of it, I'm not condoning the away team being cheered for either when they get hurt. But when it's your team, your rooting interest, and you're going to cheer because the guy might not be performing, or I hope it's a little deeper than this, but maybe not doing so well for your fantasy team. And don't get me wrong, that is part of why people root for football. Because if you have a bad team, like you and I mean, both of our teams are below 500, a lot of our rooting interest at the end of the season comes down to fantasy.
We're just doing it for fun. We don't play for, as some people do play for, jelly beans.
Yeah, and the thing is, I have a league where with some poker buddies, and we put in a small amount of money, like $25. And at the end of the season, the top 3 will get something out of it. It's not a large money. There are people that put in thousands upon thousands of dollars into fantasy football. It's be much more. Like me, $25, if I lose it, so be it. I'm not going to change how I root for the game or play for that. $1,000, $2,000. I don't know how much.
I know how stressed out fantasy football can make you just when you do it for fun. Yeah, I can't imagine that much.
Exactly. So there are probably people in that stadium, and these leagues, these $1,000 leagues, are deeper than a lot. They might have 16 teams, 17, or even 32 teams possible. I'm not sure how it works out for competitive wise, but the money at the end is higher. So people are going to have people like Matt Castle as their quarterback. I don't want to say that that's why they were booing or cheering in any way, shape, or form, but I think
you really hope one person
cold-hearted-
wasn't
yes.
in the stand going, "Yay, that means I can claim so and so off the waiver wire now."
Yeah, someone's going up against Matt Castle. I mean, it's early. It's an early game, so you can't really have too much. But it's a close game. Yes, Matt Castle's out. Yes, I have a better chance. It's like it's a little disgusting, and it's just the cold-hearted nature of it, as opposed to the white-hot, blooded passion for the game. I think that's what makes it worse for me, is that it was just cold-blooded as opposed to in-the-moment, passionate, heat of battle type of thing with the Braves fans.
With the Braves fans, there was the case of duration. With the case of the Chiefs fans, it was the case of the sheer cold-heartedness, savageness.
Yeah,
of it.
and now fans are going to be fans. You're going to do things that might not be the best etiquette moves overall, but at the same time, you have to know the line. And I think the Chiefs fans well crossed the line. And we saw it with Kansas City during the All-Star game, booing Robinson Cano during the home run derby because he didn't take a Kansas City player
Butler.
like he said he was going to. Now that I thought was a little more deserved, because he said, "I will do this," and he didn't do it.
And any excuse for booing a Yankee who's never
Yeah,
been.
exactly.
As long as they're not hurt.
And this goes with anything. If someone gives you their word and they break it, and you have a voice to say something, you have every right to boo and say what you wish. That goes for friends, politics, sports, anything. If someone gives you their word and they break it, boo them. Give them hell, essentially. But to cheer when someone gets hurt is a different level. So that's my case on the Chiefs versus the Braves thing. And I think there's a case to be had. And I've heard a few people debate both of these back and forth. So hopefully both fan bases, next time we see them, will be
No beer
better
bottles
spirits.
being tossed out on the field, or people booing quarterbacks,
Yeah,
or in
cheering
case cheering
injuries.
quarterbacks being hurt, I should say. And also, speaking of injuries, there were two more very key injuries. Though it's amazing how somebody can actually describe a mild concussion. I don't think there is such a thing.
There are different,
Robert Griffin III.
Yeah, there are different degrees.
I'm sure
to it.
I'm sure you've seen the. I don't know if you could say highlight or low light. Just absolutely.
Yeah, and the
Getting
thing about
creamed.
Robert Griffin III's concussion was that it was on the bounce. It wasn't. First of all, when he got hit originally, that's not what caused it. It was when he hit the second player going down that caused it. So that helps because not the full force impact. The fact that he landed on the player, not the ground, also helped because he's not hitting such a hard surface. The ground, if you haven't fallen recently, doesn't give much. It's a pretty solid surface. The person's body will have a little more give to it. Plus, all the padding. So
Hopefully,
that
he's
shouldn't be
going
as
over
bad.
practice running out of bounds.
Yes, and that's a big thing. As long as he'll be back, I think, this coming week. But it was a scary play. And you had mentioned the other injury.
Danny Amendola, who from the Rams at least has not quite made it to the half of the season before being injured this year. But all joking, kidding, and levity aside, scary moment with a clavicle, because I've listened to different podcasts and watched all the TV shows, and what ended up happening, I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on the internet, but my understanding of what happened is that his clavicle, normally clavicles when they break, and that's something I hope nobody ever has to have happen, usually goes up. In this case, what happened with Danny, it went down and could have gone into the aorta.
Yeah, the aorta, for those of you who do not know anatomy as well as others, is part of the heart. Something impairs that, you almost certainly die. Especially if you are in a situation where you are in football pads, given they have ambulances at the stadium should something extreme happen. But you're not in a situation, actually might be a better situation because you have medical staff on hand plus the ambulance already there. But anytime something punctures your aorta, you
Portable
don't have a
level
lot of
1
time.
trauma center.
Yeah, you don't have a great amount of time to get from point A to point B being a hospital. So it's very lucky for him that it's just a broken clavicle. And yeah, he's probably going to lose the rest of the season, and he was having a great season so far through 5 weeks or 4.5. But I think he's going to be obviously disappointed because he's letting down his teammates. And when I say letting down, I mean he's going to feel like he's letting them down, not that the team's going to feel like he's letting him down. And I want that to be clear. He's going to feel like he's letting down his team because he can't be out there. But I think in the grand scheme of things, when he takes that step back outside the sports and goes, I'm lucky. Even though I'm hurt,
he knows
even though I'm
recovering
out.
is going to be the most important thing that he can do
Exactly.
to help his team out.
Exactly. And he's going to put that much work into recovering, but I think he's going to come back and say, I'm lucky to not be dead. Because, like I said, if you have something impale your aorta, you're done. That's pretty much game over, man.
How many injuries after really bad hits have we seen where for Ed Reed, I can remember, like 20 minutes or longer, the player laying motionless on the field and just the entire stadium, absolutely, you could hear a pin drop.
Well, a few years back, Eric LaGrange, I think is his name, from Rutgers, stayed on the field. Now, I mean, we got Coach Shiano now in Tampa. He was there watching that. He's still in a wheelchair. He probably will not walk
Eric
again.
was signed by the Buccaneers, even though we know that he'll never, that as a representative.
Yeah, he's never going to play. And we saw
Class move by the Bucs, though. Very class.
Yeah, and you saw the Bills player a few years back also get hit. He's made a pretty good recovery. He won't play again, but he's at least working and walking again.
Yeah, I know the name is both escaping us, but that totally paralyzed.
Yeah, and he's made a great comeback and kind of freak things, but it's real. I mean, that's the thing. And going back to the Chiefs thing, if Matt Castle never got up again, how horrible would those fans who cheered him getting hurt actually feel? And that's actually a question.
You would hope some of them would feel horrible.
There would be some, but there would be a good number that went, oh well.
Some people probably just wouldn't feel at all.
But, I mean, we've seen it. It is rare. It is uncommon. I mean, we saw Darius Hayward-Bay get knocked out a couple weeks ago, and there was a couple times in the Arizona-St. Louis game, other injuries, that someone got knocked down. They didn't get up right away.
There was
a
even
few minutes.
The tweets, I didn't watch the game, but I know there was in one of the Hawaii games in college, there were 2 horrendous injuries that happened.
Yeah, and let's be fair, it's a dangerous sport, but all kidding aside.
Modern version of gladiators,
Yes.
pretty much.
But anyways, as we look ahead instead of looking back, last week both Joel and I did not make picks because we were off the week before that. Joel went 10-5 with his pick, which is very, very solid.
Then went 10 and best of all pick on making up for the 2 weeks where I sort of forgot to make the pick.
Yes,
so
that was in our pick'em league with the spread, with straight up. Joel also went 10-5 against
the
me.
historic comeback.
He is
is
now
upon us.
23-24 in the picks for the season. He is only
When I remember
best
to
of
do
5.
it, I'm the smartest person in the world when I get it right. As opposed to when you have the weeks when you're the dumbest person in the world. Because picking sure keeps you kind of level with the weeks. It's like fantasy football. You think, I'm the greatest fantasy general manager in all of known existence. And the next week it's like,
You get slaughtered.
everyone who scores points, you benched.
Yeah.
Like
Joel-
Robert Meacham.
Yeah. Joel is now 23-24 in our straight up pick'em.
I'm almost 500.
Almost back to 500. I am 31-16 after a 13-2 week in week 4. Of course, no picks
Does
last
that mean
week.
I'm doing better than the Browns?
Almost. You're about there where the Packers should be, where they're just below 500 when in reality they should be above 500.
Time to do a discount double check?
Discount double check. I love those commercials. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. But we're going to go through our week 6 picks real quick and then get to generic sponsors and final thoughts and get this wrapped up in a tidy 45 minutes. So our first game is Pittsburgh at Tennessee, the Thursday nighter that we're both not a big fan of the Thursday night games, but for fantasy reasons, I enjoy it. There's an extra game on, even though they're not very competitive.
When was the last time there's been a good Thursday night game? Because usually it's like a blowout. It's
Thanksgiving. It's always on Thanksgiving that there's a good Thursday night game. The rest of them have not been too competitive. So that
only for short-term investment purposes or fantasy purposes are they even relevant.
Yeah.
And standings, also standings.
But so far we haven't had a real close game. But between Pittsburgh and Tennessee, I think it's going to be Steelers all the way. I just don't think Tennessee's all that good.
Yeah, Roethlisberger. And I did see a tweet from Matthew Berry that apparently that Elias, you might have heard that name before, changed Big Ben, so I believe that it was a passing touchdown instead of a a rushing touchdown.
Yeah.
So that should affect a couple people's leagues, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, forward pass versus a lateral. So we're both taking the Steelers in that one.
Yep, Steelers.
Then we got Kansas City and Tampa Bay. I'm going to take the Bucks just because Kansas City's going to be playing Brady Quinn this week. They're on the road. They're not all that good as it is.
Come on out, come on in. We're not sure we want to see the mighty Quinn, so yeah, I gotta go the Bucks too. I mean, they were so close with the Redskins, so very close. Dallas game we won't talk about, but I think they have a chance against the Chiefs. Chiefs can score, but that's about it.
Yeah. The Colts against the Jets. The Colts coming off that big win against Green Bay. I think the Colts will keep it rolling. I had this team being a dark horse playoff team, and the Jets. Had it not been for two missed Dan Carpenter field goals, would be a 1-4 team right now, and they have not looked good in any of their games that I've seen so far. Besides the first game against Buffalo, who's, let's face it, kind of a joke right now. So I'm going to take the Colts.
And the Jets coming off the moral victory, meaning they almost won that Monday night game. Gotta go with the Colts because you gotta wonder who you're going to see first if Sanchez is ever benched. Is it going to be that quarterback that you might know who is on the team, or will it be the third string quarterback?
Yeah, we'll have to see. And I don't think it's far off that we'll see somebody else take the helm. Cincinnati.
You notice how he's not called Sanchez anymore?
No, he's not. He's not a starting quarterback. He really isn't. Cincinnati at Cleveland. This is one of the first rematches of the year. Cincinnati won the first one 38-31 at home over Cleveland.
Gotta go with the Bengals.
Yeah, even though the Bengals are coming off a loss to the Dolphins, who a lot of people say are a pretty weak team. They're 2 overtime games from being 4-1. They're 2-3. The Bengals 3-2. Cleveland hasn't done much at all well this year. I gotta take the Bengals in that one. Then Detroit at Philadelphia. We'll have to see how that game goes.
How many more hits Vic takes?
Yeah, Vic is not long for being healthy, I don't think. I'm going to take the Eagles, though, in this game, even though this might be the one he gets knocked out of.
Yeah, especially with the way Detroit defense can play, but I'll agree with you and definitely go with the Birds.
Yeah, and then we have Oakland at undefeated Atlanta. You got to go with Atlanta. Oakland is not looked good except for the game they beat Pittsburgh.
Do we even know who the quarterback in Oakland is?
It's Carson Palmer, but that's a trivia question that a lot of fans wouldn't get. Depends on how deep your fantasy team is, really. Your fantasy league.
That would be because, of course, Carson Palmer had the whole... he didn't get along too well with Brown and all the folks in Cincinnati, but... yeah, I don't see the... Oakland winning that one either, so gotta go with the Falcons. They're going to be 6-0.
Yeah, the Amendola-less St. Louis Rams taking a trip to Miami, of course, shutting down Arizona last week. Should be a good game. I'm going to take Miami. Like I said, Miami could very easily be 4-1 right now. In fact, I would venture to say they should be 4-1 the way they lost the 2 games they did, both having a lead or having opportunities to win the game outright. The Dolphins, I'm going to take them to win over the Rams.
I'll agree with you on the Dolphins. Your namesake is definitely starting to look like a quarterback for the National Football League.
Yeah, so hopefully for my team's sake, they'll keep going. And I know we both had pretty dire outlooks for both our own team and our each other's teams, but the Dolphins might be one of those teams that if you let them hang around, and given there's only one team in the AFC East above 500, that's New England at 3-2, they're off this week.
They were a Willis McGahee drop away from possibly not being the 3.
Yeah, New England is not off this week. I'll correct myself. But if Miami can win, it just takes one New England loss, and they're back tied for first in week 6 or 7 or however long this goes on. I think it was a shock to most people that they were tied for first after week 2, let alone that they're only a game out after week 5.
And something new, eventually this is going to be a new segment for the Sport Shuffle, but calling an audible here, and you have the Seahawks winning with New England on the road. However, you know what, Ryan? I have a penny here a penny for the no sense first sport shuffle pick'em that says it's going to be New England.
Well, I'm still going to take Seattle. I think that Monday nighter against Green Bay kind of showed how daunting going into Seattle can be. We saw
The 12th man.
The 12th man, and given the Packers had to deal with the 13th man that game. But I would be willing to say the Seahawks will win that game. And I'm hoping as well that they will win that game because I think Miami's going to win. And they'll be tied for first after week 6.
So we'll see who makes more sense.
And by the way, we say no sense. It is no CENTS, not sense. So it is a pun.
Sometimes we're nonsensical, but
yes.
Actually, isn't that all the time?
All the time. All crazy all the time.
Yep, we are.
But then we go back to Dallas at Baltimore. Dallas has not been impressive. And there's a lot of people after week 1 thought this was a Super Bowl team, and then they got shellacked. And they came back and won against Tampa, and then they got blown out by Chicago.
They got Romoed.
Yes, they got Romoed. So I don't see them beating Baltimore. Baltimore should win this game pretty handily.
Now, the only thing that's really impressive about Dallas is the fact that they have a lingerie shop in their stadium. So, got to go with the Ravens. Ravens going to claw them.
Yeah, and then Buffalo at Arizona. Buffalo has given up over 550 yards each of the last 2 weeks. And by the way,
Only?
San Francisco is not an offensive team, and they gave up that many yards. I don't see them containing Arizona, even though Arizona, as we've seen, gave up 17
Can't hope to stop them. We
sacks.
can just hope to contain them.
17 sacks in 4 days. 8 against the Dolphins, 9 against the Rams. So if Buffalo's defense is going to shine, they're going to crush Cobb, but I think the Cardinals will win that game.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have Cobb as a quarterback that he's benched. I think Flacco's my starter for that one. So, got to agree with you. It's the Cardinals.
Yeah, and then we got the Giants and the 49ers, the NFC Championship game rematch from last year. The Niners have looked so good the last few weeks. I think they're going to go back against the New York team and win that game fairly handily.
I don't know about fairly handily. I think it's going to be close, but I still see the 49ers winning, and Eli is going to be doing his own version of the Manning face.
And then we got Minnesota. One of the biggest surprises of the season is Minnesota against Washington. RG3 probably will play, it seems like, but still not for sure. He's still going to come back from a concussion. There's going to be a little bit of time. We've got to get used to it. I'm going to take the Vikings to win that one.
Vikings are a definite surprise so far this year, even with all of the ceiling jokes that we made. So definitely have to agree with you on that one and picking the Vikings.
Then we have Green Bay at undefeated Houston. I'm going to take the Packers on this one. They've been one of those hardest teams to predict all year long.
Speaking of discount double check.
But I'm going to take the Packers to actually end Houston's perfect season this week. So I'm going to say that Houston goes down.
Well, I'll have to disagree with you again, and the second no-sense bet will definitely be that I say the Texans take them down.
All right, and then the Monday nighter, the Denver Broncos going to San Diego. I'm going to take the Broncos to win that game. I really don't believe in San Diego, and I just don't see this division's not strong. Let's be fair.
Sort of like the NL worst in baseball.
Yeah, because I think the winner of this game, and I know Denver's 2-3, will be first in the division. So at best, it's going to be a 3-3 team. So I'm going to take Denver to win that one.
Have to agree with you on that one. You have Peyton, you have Phillip. Got to go with Peyton, especially if it's the second half.
Yep, and we're going to have to wrap this one up pretty quick. We can do final thoughts and our sponsors on a second one if we have anything more to talk about. If not, we will see you all next week around the same time. Same place, of course, on Spreaker. Joel, go ahead and take us out.
All right, and thanks for my co-host, Flying Ryan Gilchrist here. Joel Verlin in the zone behind the microphone saying, that's it. You're you, we're still us, and we're gone. Cue our music.